Hello everyone, and this is my review for Monday Night Raw on November 2nd, 2015. And, well, they started off Raw, and I'll get to the full main event later on. They started off Raw the same way they've started off Raw so many times. A 20-minute promo. Well, maybe not 20 minutes this time, a little bit shorter probably, but at least this time it led to something that I was kind of excited for. I do like the Survivor Series traditional matches, the 5-on-5s and everything, and they said they were going to give us one tonight with Roman Reigns with the team and with Seth Rollins as a team. And they did this in an interesting way. They showed Seth Rollins making his team throughout the night, getting Kevin Owens after his match with Dolph Ziggler. I'll get into that in a little bit because that had other storyline elements to it, which was actually a pretty good match. I liked how they let Kevin Owens work over the injured leg of Dolph Ziggler, everything in that aspect. I thought their match was actually pretty good, but I'll get into a little bit more on that a little bit later. But like I said, seeing Seth Rollins pick up Kevin Owens and then pick up the New Day later on, where they didn't show Roman Reigns picking anybody throughout the entire night, so you were kind of left in a mystery of who he was going to have. One person you would assume, which is what they did get, would be in there. And I'll get into that here a little bit later on. Let's go to where they were with Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens. Like I said, they had it where Kevin Owens was working over his injured leg. What's been going on with him and Tyler Breeze recently, with Tyler Breeze's debut a few weeks back and everything there, and they did the typical Tyler Breeze type stuff where he's gonna distract Dolph Ziggler. Everything in that aspect. They haven't really done anything to show Tyler Breeze off on the ring yet. They're kind of just getting his character over in some way, shape, or form. Though honestly, teaming him up with Summer Rae, I don't think was a good choice by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it really works towards Tyler Breeze's character. To actually have, Tyler Breeze's character is he's more beautiful than any. He goes off as a more attractive person even to the females and does not even want them around in some way. He would almost shoo them off no matter what as well. Because and that was kind of how he at least worked in NXT for the longest time. But they have him teaming up with Summer here. I guess in the end their character personalities mesh well together. It should be an interesting pairing. We'll see where they go with that pairing as well down the road here, and see how they continue developing this Dolph Ziggler versus Tyler Breeze feud somewhere down the road here. Not much to go about it with this one. He kind of helps. He distracts Dolph Ziggler, giving Kevin Owens the win, and then does his. Make sure Dolph Ziggler's knocked out afterwards, and then does his old selfie shtick afterwards over his fallen opponent. So, nothing too much there, but they can slowly build this up somewhere into something later on. So we'll see where they go with it and when they actually decide to have a match with it. Couple matches that didn't really necessarily serve a purpose in the end, but they kind of got those guys out there and got them over a little bit more in some way, shape, or form. The Sheamus King Barrett match with the Lucha Dragons, in the terms of any kind of storyline or anything, didn't really serve a purpose. It was a great match, beginning to end. I like this match. Also interesting that they had the Lucha Dragons go over in this case. I believe they had the Lucha Dragons go over. I don't know why. I actually have it up here. Give me a second. Sometimes I forget even when it's just happened. Yeah, they had the Lucha Dragons go over. I thought, that's what I thought. They had the Lucha Dragons go over here. And, again, kind of interesting that they had the Lucha Dragons go over, especially considering they've kind of just gotten this Sheamus and King Barrett team going in general, and I know they had Rusev in there as well, but it seems like they're going to just stick with Sheamus and King Barrett for a little while, so you figured they were going to put them over more as a team and try to maybe get them down the road for a tag title shot, but they had the Lucha Dragons go over in this case, so maybe they're pushing for them to have something down the road as well. Another match, at least storyline-wise, didn't really serve much of a purpose. Well, actually, there was two more. One had another storyline purpose in there, though. Actually, they set up a match during the pre-show with Cesaro and The Miz. And the way they had it set up is like, oh, Miz was trying to get him to be get Cesaro to be part of his little entourage or everything, or part of his team and everything in that aspect. And it was pretty much Cesaro was like, nah, let's just fight. I kind of like that. I kind of was like, nah, let's just fight. I don't want to be a part of this like team thing or anything like that. Or I don't want to be a part of your team. Let's just fight and have a match. Again, really good match for them. Great to see that he's going back to the swing and going for like crazy long revolutions of it. And I also like the sharpshooter finish as well. That was he puts on a very good sharpshooter, a lot better than some other people I know, or not that I know, but some people I've seen. The Rock. Sometimes even though I like The Rock, he does have the worst sharpshooter in the history of everybody. Even worse than Stone Cold's. So, yeah. But, again, in the end, really good match from The Miz and Cesaro in there. I thought it was a really good match and a really good way of going. Another match that didn't have storyline purposes, but they did something beforehand. I'm glad they did do this. I'm actually really glad they did this, and probably setting up a storyline for a match between the two of them, with Alberto Del Rio coming back and starting this whole Mex America thing with him and Zeb Coulter. You were always wondering, it's like, okay, when Zeb Coulter was around, he was always around with Jack Swagger, and they hadn't really done much of anything over the last week with that. This week they actually did something with that, and I'm glad they're going with this continuity in some way, because, you know, the whole thing started with Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter a long time ago, and they were going after Alberto Del Rio and everything like that. That was how they worked the heel heat for Jack Swagger back then, was with the storyline with Alberto Del Rio. And now it's kind of like done a 180, where like Zeb Coulter's completely changed his way of thinking and everything like that. Like, honestly, the way Swagger was coming off, he was trying to be like a face or a person concerned for Zeb or something in that sense. And honestly, the way that it truly comes off, he almost comes off a little bit like a heel. Like he wants him to kind of go back to his... like the way they made it come off with Zeb is that it's like, oh, we have to get rid of immigrants and everything like that, and they made him come off as a bigot back then. But now he's switching his ways, and now he's not so much in that sense of that way of thinking of getting rid of immigrants or trying to kick people out because of this or that. So it's not like that aspect. So like technically in this case, at least in society thinking, you know, Zeb Coulter and Alberto Del Rio are kind of faces here, while Jack Swagger might be kind of a heel, though the way they were trying to portray Swagger in there was almost like a face, because that's what he had been for the longest time. He was a face, or quote unquote a face, though he was going after Rusev because of the he became a face when he was going after Rusev and everything in that sense, and that was when they were dogging America and everything like that. But we'll see where they go with this. I'm glad they're going this route, because it does add a little sense of continuity, and it doesn't put like a plot hole twist in there. It's like whatever happened to Jack Swagger with Zeb Coulter and everything like that. Now they're kind of meshing that in there, and you'll probably get a match with Alberto Del Rio and Zeb Coulter, or not Zeb Coulter, but and Jack Swagger down the road, and then the match with Alberto Del Rio and R-Truth, pretty good match, nothing special in the end. Next up, actually, was throughout the night, and they did a good job of actually building the Divas Fatal 4-Way match. They were trying to build, they were doing the basic storyline, build a Fatal 4-Way match, and these four will get a shot. Will get a shot at being a #1 contender. And you know, you have Becky Lynch and Brie Bella having a promo earlier on. Also one with Sasha Banks in there, pretty good promo leading into the actual match itself. And then they gave time for the match, and it wasn't like one of those really short ones that they go with. They gave them a lot of time for their for that Fatal 4-Way match, and you know, they even got the crowd, like the crowd got behind it, everything like that. So again, this is one of those senses where you give them you give the Divas the time, and you give them and this goes just for wrestling in general. You don't give them a convoluted storyline to try to get people thinking and everything like that. You give a simple storyline. It's like, oh, these four are going after the title. Okay. And the fans got behind it. And you heard them throughout the match. They were enjoying the match and everything like that. It was actually a really good Fatal 4-Way. And, you know, you could pretty much see that they were going, especially with last week with Paige going after Becky Lynch and Charlotte, that they were going to go with Paige being the #1 contender. Probably the right choice here. But they teased the other ones good enough. They teased the others potentially getting the win good enough that, you know, in the end it doesn't necessarily feel like they would have fully gone that way. But Paige is probably the right spot there because they decided, because they were you know, setting up the storyline. But at least, well, they've been setting up that storyline for about a couple months, but they fully set it up last week. And in that sense, so, you know, again, really really good Fatal 4-Way match there from all four of them. They like I said, they tease the finishes pretty good in there before Paige eventually gets the win. So again, really, really good teasers there for that match, and ended up being a really good Fatal 4-Way. So this brings me off to the main event. Like I mentioned before, you had seen Seth Rollins getting his team together throughout the entire show. He gets Kevin Owens and he gets the New Day, and we hadn't seen any of Roman Reigns' tag team partners. Now, you know, in the terms of storyline, you knew one of them, which would have been Dean Ambrose, and he did come out last. The other one in there being Ryback as well. Kind of a good, you know, proper choice. You have his, you do have his past feud with Kevin Owens in there, so you have at least that in there to work off of. But the Usos returning, I didn't actually see that one coming. Then again, I was not reading any spoilers or anything throughout the day, so expecting the Usos to come back. I'm glad to see them back. The crowd was jumping for them, was pretty amped for them coming back as well. It felt like people were actually a little bit surprised when they did come out there for their typical entrance, which is an entrance I've always liked. With the chanting and getting everything started, they get the crowd behind them and saying "Oos" and "O" on there. So again, really nice to see Jimmy and Jay back in there. And as for the match, as for the traditional Survivor Series match, you know, outside of the ending where, and I do like the actual aspect of Seth Rollins trying to run away from Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns at the end, but the match leading up to that point, I thought was also extremely phenomenal. I like the whole aspect of Xavier Woods getting himself amped up and only to get knocked out right away type feeling. You know, that really quick elimination out of nowhere. Outside of that, most people, you know, most of the other guys were able to at least go out there and show off a little bit of what they can do. They allow each guy to have a little bit of time and a little bit of advantage of making them look good at some point before either getting eliminated or this or that. And, you know, leading everything into the actual finish, which was Seth Rollins trying to get away from Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns, only to eventually have to attack them with a chair to, you know, squirm away at that point. It was, you know, they were trying to book him as looking weak again, which is honestly where they haven't been needing to book him recently. They need to book him a little bit stronger. It would have probably been stronger for him to try to go down fighting in this case. but they do keep him in the cowardly heel type aspect for this one, which in the end isn't a horrible way of going, but I wish they would have booked him a little bit differently going into his match with Roman Reigns with Survivor Series. So, really good match until the finish. I thought the finish was a little bit weak to this match, but overall, that Survivor Series match at the end of the show was a pretty good way of ending the show. And like I said, at the beginning of the show, when they make that announcement that they're gonna have a 5-on-5 Survivor Series styles match, I was actually really excited because I like that style of match. It's a lot of fun, and it gets a chance for other people to team up with maybe the main eventers and everything like that, and get to show off a little bit of what they can do with the main event guys being around, and get them a little bit more attention for down the road. So overall, this week's Raw, pretty good Raw, not bad. Matches were good. Some of the storyline setup was, pretty good as well. In some cases, you didn't have any kind of story. Oh yeah, and they're continuing. I almost forgot. I don't know why. I always forget something. I forgot, like, the Lucha Dragons actually winning the match beforehand. But they also, during Cesaro's match with the Miz, they're continuing this thing with Stardust and Cesaro. And now Stardust has him and the Ascension out there with Stardust section signs, to counteract the Cesaro section. So they're continuing on with that, and we'll see where they go with Cesaro and Stardust. I like the Stardust character. He just comes off as wacky and over the top as possible. He's almost like a comic book villain. So, in the end, I enjoy things like that. That's just me. I do enjoy that stuff. So, in the end, like I said, I want to see where they go with this. It should be interesting if they do some kind of like 6-man tag where Cesaro gets a couple of partners, or if this is going to be something where it's going to be a one-on-one with Cesaro and Stardust. So we'll see where they go with that as well. And like I said, overall this week with Raw, pretty good Raw. Not bad. Not a bad Raw. I won't say it was an overly great Raw, but it's better than what they've been doing. Again, like last week was a better than what they have been doing show. So at least it's looking up a little bit. And we'll see where they continue on with this and see if they can continue that route. And that is my review for Monday Night Raw this week. And I thank you guys for watching.